The air is quiet in ways it never used to be. Long ago, before all this started, we heard the hum of traffic, the laugh of people walking together, and the distant sound of music coming from open windows. Now, all that is gone. There is only the wind, the distant creak of old signs, and the low hiss of static on the radio. I am speaking from a small station, hidden in a worn building. The walls here are thick, and the windows are boarded. I am alone behind this microphone, but I know others might be listening. If you are out there, keep still and keep quiet. I will share what I know so we can all try to stay alive one more night. It has been many weeks since the first reports of a strange sickness that spread from city to city. At first, people thought it was just another illness like many we had known before. But then came the silence, the empty streets, and the shape of things that no longer breathed as we do. Those who were lost rose again, hungry and without sense, roaming the roads in search of any sound, any movement, any warm body they could reach. I do not know how long my own broadcast will last. The power here flickers from time to time, and I must keep the generator running on whatever scraps of fuel I can find. My voice might crack with thirst, but I will keep speaking as long as I can, because we need to know that we are not alone. I have heard faint signals from other stations, though often just static and a few broken words. Some have warned of large groups of infected gathering near old highways, waiting for anyone who tries to travel. Others say small groups of survivors have settled in remote hills or old farms, trying to grow food and stay quiet. I cannot confirm these stories, but I pass them along because hope is the only thing that keeps us going. If you are new to all this, if you somehow slept through it or hid away in a cellar, let me tell you what we know. The infected can move at walking pace most of the time, though some shuffle slowly as if their limbs are stiff. They do not speak. They moan sometimes or hiss through broken teeth. Their eyes are dull and their skin is cold, but do not be fooled. They can still notice movement or sound. They will react if you call out or run close to them. The best way to survive is to stay quiet, move slowly, and watch all sides. Do not trust bright lights at night. Light draws them like moths. If you must see in the dark, shield your light with cloth, keep it dim, and never linger in one spot too long. If you find an old building with a working lock on the door, use it. Block the windows with boards, push furniture against the entrances, and stay low. If you have a radio, tune into this frequency at dawn and dusk. I try to broadcast at these times when the wind is calm and the infected seem less active. I must also warn you about the air near large groups of infected. Some say there are strange particles drifting around them, things that can affect your breathing. Many survivors wear layers of cloth over their nose and mouth, and some swear by charcoal filters. If you see large numbers of the infected in one area, try to go around. Even if you cannot see them, their presence might linger in the air. As for water, streams and old wells are safer than city pipes now. The pipes have gone silent, and who knows what flows through them now. Boil what you can, if you can manage a small fire without attracting attention. Food is harder to find each day. Cans are good if they are sealed and not swollen. Dry goods last longer, but rats and other small creatures might have gotten into them, so check for holes and strange smells. If you are near farmland, you might find old root vegetables still in the ground, but be careful and look around before you bend down to dig. I once heard a faint voice from a crackly signal saying that in some cold places up north, the infected freeze and do not move until the sun warms them again. If that is true, then maybe those who can stand the cold might find some peace there. But cold also brings its own dangers. Lack of shelter, frostbite, and no easy way to grow food. Every place has its risks now. There are stories of small groups who have learned ways to trap the infected. They use old roads and barriers to channel them into narrow paths where sharp stakes and obstacles can stop them. This might buy some time or clear a route, but it is never perfect. Sooner or later, noise or movement will bring more of them. Some survivors say the infected grow more active after dusk, when the sky is dark. Others say they are always around, just quieter at certain times. I cannot be sure. I recall the early days when the news anchors tried to explain what was happening, before the screens went dark. They said that the sickness was spreading through direct bites at first. Then they said it could be in the air near large gatherings of the infected. then nothing. Now we must guess. I have watched some who hid behind masks for weeks, careful and silent, only to find them gone the next day, their shelter torn open. It is safer to avoid cities altogether. The old city centers are full of these creatures. They wander streets where we once shopped, where we once danced, where we once shared meals. Now those places are ghostly shells. Broken windows, empty cars, doors swinging in the breeze. If you must go into a city, do it in daylight, move slowly, and know your exits. High ground can help. Rooftops might offer a view, but also can trap you if there is no way down. Some survivors say they have found small enclaves. Perhaps they have. Maybe in the mountains or along quiet shores. I have heard a rumor about a group holding out in a valley where they have diverted streams and made crude defenses out of logs and barbed wire. They share food and stories over candlelight and keep watch in shifts. I do not know if this is real or just something someone made up to keep from losing hope. It matters that we keep speaking, though. If you are hearing me, maybe you can send out a signal of your own. Even if I never hear it, someone else might. That is how we stay human. By knowing we are not the only ones left, by knowing that somewhere out there, another living mind thinks and hopes. We must hold on to that, because without it, we are no better than the silent crowds outside. I remember the old world. I remember how we complained about small problems that now seem like dreams. We had warm beds, safe sidewalks, and bright shops full of food. We did not know how good we had it until it all slipped away. Now every sip of clean water is precious. Every quiet night without a scream is a gift. We find ourselves whispering prayers even if we never believed in anything before. Sometimes I laugh at the memory of complaining about traffic jams. Now the roads are empty, except for rusting cars and shuffling shapes that no longer care about rules or lanes. I have to say that if you are near the coast, be cautious. There have been reports of infected drifting in the water, bodies that washed ashore. They might move slower, but they still can bite. Salt water does not clean them away. If you travel by boat, do it quietly and try not to splash. The infected react to sudden sounds, even over water. If you have children with you, teach them the signs to watch for. Teach them to stay quiet, to freeze when they hear a moan. Teach them to hide behind thick walls and to climb if they can. It is sad that they must learn these things, but it may keep them alive. Children adapt fast, but we must guide them. They are all we have left of tomorrow. I must pause for a moment. I hear something outside the building. Just a soft scrape, like a branch or a hand against the wall. I will stay quiet and listen. I will be back in a moment. It is quiet again. Perhaps it was just the wind. I cannot be sure. I keep a small makeshift barricade at the door, and I have my little radio set up so I can still talk. If anything tries to come in, I have a few tools and a heavy bar of metal. I may not be strong, but I will fight if I must. Let us continue. I once spoke to a family over the radio who were hiding in an attic in the north. They said the infected gathered below their home, blocking the doors. The father tried to give advice on how to reinforce windows using sheets of metal and wooden boards nailed across them. He said that if anyone out there heard his voice, they should take note. He ended by saying they did all they could, and now it was up to others to keep on living. Then his voice faded into static. I never heard them again. If you have the luck to find a working vehicle, remember that noise will draw attention. A running engine can attract them from far away. If you must drive, do so at dawn when the infected seem less clustered, and head out on back roads. Avoid honking and braking loudly. Keep your eyes open, because one wrong turn can lead you into a mass of them. That would be the end. Some survivors speak of groups forming convoys to gather those who are scattered. They say there might be signals in code, painted on walls or trees, guiding survivors to a safer place. Red arrows, 3 dashes, or simple patterns that tell you which way to go. But be careful, because some signs could lead into traps, either set by people who have lost their minds or by infected gathering in quiet corners. We must remember that not everyone left alive is friendly. Hunger and fear can twist people. Some may try to steal your supplies or harm you. Trust is rare now. If you find someone, Watch them from a distance first. Look for signs of kindness or a willingness to share. If they hold out their hand, be cautious, but consider giving them a chance. We need each other more than ever, but we must not be foolish. I heard from a voice on another frequency that somewhere in the old country near the mountains, a group managed to set up a small farm. They found old seeds and learned to plant them in hidden patches, covered from view by old tarps. They water them at night, always with 2 watchers standing guard with makeshift spears. The infected may stumble through their fields now and then, but they stay low and still until the moans pass by. In time, they hope to harvest enough food to last through the colder months. If this is true, then there is still hope that we can do more than just survive day to day. Maybe we can learn to live again in some quiet corners. But I do not want to paint an easy picture. It is very hard out there. Every day is a struggle. We scavenge what we can from ruined homes, peek into old cupboards, reach under dusty beds for boxes of crackers long past their best date. We drink water from puddles after boiling it, cough in the smoke of our makeshift fires, and sleep on hard floors. And always we listen for that telltale shuffle, that dragging sound of something no longer living trying to find us. The infected do not rest, do not get bored, do not argue among themselves. They just keep moving, keep searching, drawn by senses we can only guess at. They may not be smart, but their numbers are large and always growing as they find new victims. If you are bitten, we have no cure. Some say if you cut the limb off quick enough, you might slow it. But I cannot say if that is true. The old doctors and nurses are mostly gone now, and hospitals are death traps filled with those who turned early in the outbreak. If you find medicine, keep it safe. Painkillers, antibiotics, anything that might help treat a wound or infection, not the main one that makes them rise, but the ordinary kind that comes from dirt and grime. Clean bandages matter more than gold. A working flashlight or a good pair of boots is worth more than any old piece of jewelry now. We have returned to a time when basic things mean life or death. Some nights, I dream of another voice calling out my name over these airwaves. I wake up and realize it was just my mind playing tricks. Still, I tune my dial carefully, straining to hear something more than static. Once, I caught a faint whisper, a man's voice saying something about water and a safe house. Then he was gone. I spent hours calling out, trying different frequencies, but got nothing else. If you are out there, stranger, know that I tried to find you. Let me share what I know about moving at night. Night is dangerous because you cannot see far, and any sound you make seems louder. But the infected are not much better at seeing in the dark than we are. They rely a lot on sound. If you must move at night, try crawling slowly. Stay low behind cars or walls, and never shine a bright light. If you have a small penlight, shield it with your hand. Move in short bursts and pause to listen often. If you hear a moan, freeze and wait. Sometimes they will pass right by if you do not move. Daylight gives you a better view, but also exposes you to any infected in open areas. If you travel by day, hug the walls of buildings, crouch behind old fences, and peek around corners before moving forward. Stick to small side streets, not main roads. The main roads might be clogged with abandoned cars and many infected. If you see a cluster of them ahead, backtrack and find another route. Do not run unless you have to. Running makes noise, and noise is death. I recall a whispered rumor that on the far side of the old river, there is a group that has learned to burn small controlled fires to lure infected into pits. They wait until enough gather, then light the oil or old fuel they have set aside. The smell must be awful, and the risk is high. But if they can thin out their numbers that way, maybe they can reclaim some ground. I have no way of knowing if this is true. So many stories drift through the static now. If you have pets, I am sorry. Many could not keep them alive. Dogs bark and attract infected. Cats vanish into the night. Some who tried to keep their animals soon learned that every sound can bring danger. Still, if your pet is quiet and helps you by warning you when something approaches, you might keep it. Just remember you must feed it too, and food is scarce. I know this is grim. I know that hope is hard to find. But we must hold on to whatever we can. Look at the sky at sunrise and remember that we still have something left that they cannot take. They do not think, They do not feel, they do not know what the stars mean. We do. We remember what music sounded like, what laughter felt like, what it was like to hold someone close without fear. If we ever find a way out of this, it will be because we remember how to care for each other. If you find an old radio, even a small one, keep it safe. Tune it from time to time. Maybe you will hear me. Maybe you will hear another voice. If you have batteries, guard them well. Some survivors say that candlelight is safer than electric light at night because it flickers less and draws less attention. But candles also release scent, and some infected might pick up on that. Hard to say. Everything is guesswork now. I must rest for a moment. Let me check the generator and make sure we still have enough fuel. I will stay on the air, but you may hear some quiet. Do not panic. I am still here. All right, I am back. The generator sputtered a bit, but I think it will hold for another hour or so. This building is an old structure, maybe once part of a small business. I found it empty, with old chairs and tables pushed aside. I guess whoever worked here left in a hurry. I piled some of the chairs against the door. They make a good barrier. I sleep in a corner with my back to the wall and my hat pulled over my eyes. I should tell you about something I saw yesterday morning, from a small gap in the boards on the second-floor window. I watched a single infected drag one leg behind it as it moved down the street. It passed right by an old bus stop where a crow was pecking at something. The infected paid no mind to the crow. It just kept going, arms hanging low, mouth partly open. It stumbled over a cracked piece of pavement, fell onto its side, and then slowly rose again, as if it felt nothing. There is no reason behind their movement, no purpose, just an endless search. This is what the world has become. I wonder if anyone has tried to reach distant islands, far from the mainland. Perhaps on some remote shore, people are living in peace, safe from these creatures. But how to get there without a working ship or enough fuel? The seas might be just as dangerous, and we do not know how far this has spread. My guess is that it is everywhere by now, or almost everywhere. The radios have fallen silent from major cities far across the old map. It is just small voices like mine that remain. If I ever decide to leave this place, I would head toward the hills where trees might hide me. I would search for old cabins, gather nuts and berries, try to live off the land. But I am not strong, and my leg hurts from an old wound. So I stay here with my voice, hoping it reaches someone who can still move freely. Let me share a memory. Before all this, I once walked through a park at night with friends. We were laughing, telling stories. The city lights glowed in the distance, and we felt safe. Now that park is probably full of silent shapes, wandering among broken benches and fallen leaves. The laughter is gone. But I remember it, and that must count for something. If you remember good things, you keep a small flame alive inside you. That small flame is what will keep us human. If we forget who we were, what we cared about, then we have lost everything. The infected can take our streets, our shops, our schools, but they cannot steal our memory of what life was. Hold on to that as tightly as you hold on to your shelter and your food. Another pause now. I must listen again. I think I heard something outside. It was nothing. At least I think so. I listened for a long time, holding my breath. I heard only the sound of the wind slipping through gaps in the old boards. Sometimes the mind plays tricks when it is lonely and afraid. I will stay alert, but I must keep speaking. Words are all I have to hold you close, whoever you are out there. Let me tell you about a voice I once heard on these airwaves, many days ago. It came through very faintly, as if spoken from a great distance. The voice belonged to a young woman. She said she was holed up in an old school building, somewhere near what used to be a large town. She had a small group with her. 2 older men, a woman with a hurt leg, and a child who cried in the night. They had enough canned food to last a few weeks, and they had set up a system of signals by tapping on pipes. If anyone was nearby, they would tap 3 times, pause, then tap 3 times again. She said that if anyone picked up her broadcast, they should try to find them by following the sound of the taps. Then the signal faded, and I never heard her again. I wonder if they are still alive. We must accept that most voices we hear now will fade. The world is no longer kind to long-distance calls. Our best hope is to make do with what we have, right where we are. If you decide to travel, make sure you do so with a purpose. Do not wander aimlessly, or you might lose yourself in empty streets. I have been watching the weather through a gap in the old boards. The sky looks gray. I recall that rain sometimes helps mask small sounds, but it also makes surfaces slick. Falling rain also washes scents into puddles. The infected seem to react to strong smells at times, though I cannot say if this is true for all of them. If rain comes, use it to your advantage, but do not trust it too much. I remember when this station played music. It had old tapes of songs from years gone by. I found the tapes in a box under the desk. They are dusty now, and I have no power to run the old player. But I hold one tape in my hand sometimes, reading the labels and trying to recall the tunes. Music would be nice, but any noise might draw trouble. Silence is safer, even if it leaves our minds hungry for old comforts. If you are low on supplies, you might try searching small villages away from big roads. Many people fled early, leaving behind pantries with jars of dried beans, rice, and grains. Even a half bag of flour could be worth the risk. Just remember to move slowly, crouch low, and listen. Check corners before you step around them. If you spot even one infected, try to find another way in. If cornered, you must remain calm. Sometimes you can slip by if they are distracted by something else. If you must fight, do it quietly. A heavy piece of wood or a metal bar used carefully might drop one without making too much noise. But if there are more than one, running silently is better than fighting. Those who once kept gardens might have seeds hidden in tool sheds. Seeds can mean hope if you find a safe place to plant them. Carrots, potatoes, onions. These can still grow if you find patches of soil away from wandering infected. But any kind of farming requires calm and time, both hard to come by now. I heard a tale from a voice on another frequency who claimed to have traveled far on a bicycle, avoiding major roads. He said that moving quietly on a bike at dawn was the key. He would pedal slowly and keep his eyes on the sides of the road. If he saw movement ahead, he would hide in a ditch until the infected passed. He traveled this way for weeks, covering many miles, until he found a large barn where a few survivors had set up a shelter. Together they built walls from scraps of wood and metal and hung old sheets to block the view inside. He said they had stayed alive there for months, trading small items and watching each other's backs. I do not know if that is true, but I think about it often. It reminds me that a quiet mind and patient steps might take you far. We must also consider that some infected seem stronger than others. I once saw one smash through a flimsy wooden fence as if it were nothing, while others seem to struggle with even a low barrier. Maybe some have decayed more than others. Maybe some are fresher, with stronger muscles still holding together. Be careful, because you never know which kind you might face. If you come across a body that is not moving, treat it as if it might rise. Many survivors have met their end by stepping too close, thinking the infected were gone only to have them lunge suddenly. Toss a small stone from a distance if you must see if it reacts. If it does not move, still be cautious. Better to circle around and give it a wide berth. I know these words are grim. I wish I could offer more comfort. Let me try. There are still signs of beauty. Yesterday, I saw a bird perched on a broken windowsill across the street. It was a small bird, its feathers blue and gray. It sang a quiet song into the silent morning. The infected below did not look up or care. That tiny life still found a moment to sing in this world. That must mean something. I have also heard someone talk about a place where a small group of survivors managed to make a kind of signal using a mirror on a hillside. They shined sunlight in patterns, hoping to catch the eye of anyone watching from afar. They do it at midday when the sun is high, flashing the mirror 3 times in a row to signal safety. If you ever see such a flashing light on a hillside, it might be them. But be careful. Watch from a distance to see if there are infected lurking. Every small story I share might be all someone has left to hold on to. Words keep us connected. In the old days, we took words for granted. We shouted across crowded streets, spoke without thinking, wasted our breath on complaints about nothing important. Now every whisper matters. Every word we share could help someone survive one more night. If you have a hammer and nails, Reinforce your shelter. Even a thin sheet of metal nailed over a window frame can slow them down. Pile furniture against doors. Block stairwells if you must, leaving only one route for escape. Plan your exits before trouble comes. Keep a rope or a makeshift ladder ready if you have to climb down from a second floor. Do not wait until something is breaking through your door to think of how to get out. The infected do not get tired like we do, so outrunning them for a long time is hard. But they do seem to lose interest if you break their line of sight and stay silent. If you can slip around a corner, crouch behind something, and wait without making a sound, they might move on. Patience is a weapon now. Steady nerves and quiet steps can save your life more often than brute force. I have tried to understand what caused all this, but I have no answers. Without experts and working labs, we cannot find cures or reasons. We can only accept what is and try to keep on. Maybe someday someone smarter and better equipped than I am will figure something out, or find a place untouched by this plague. Until then, we endure. If you have someone with you, someone you trust, hold on to them, support each other. Take turns keeping watch at night so one can sleep while the other listens. Share food and water fairly. Learn to communicate with gestures and whispers. 2 careful survivors stand a better chance than 1 alone. But do not trust blindly. If someone starts acting strange, if they show signs of sickness, keep your distance. Harsh as it sounds, your life matters. If they were bitten, you cannot save them, and staying with them might seal your fate as well. There may be times you hear distant cries. Sometimes it might be another survivor calling for help. Sometimes it might be something else. Approach cries with great care. Many who have rushed toward a scream ended up trapped. Think before you move. The infected make strange sounds sometimes, moans and soft wails, and it can be hard to tell a human voice from the wind. If you must investigate a sound, do it slowly, with many pauses, and always have a clear retreat path. If you have a chance to gather warm clothes, do so. Nights can be cold, and shivering makes noise. Thick clothing can also give a slight layer of protection, though not much. Still, every small advantage counts. Sturdy boots help protect your feet from sharp debris and broken glass. Gloves can help you climb rough surfaces without injuring your hands. Think like someone preparing for a long hike in unfriendly land. That is what the world is now, unfriendly land everywhere. If you come across old maps, keep them. Even if you cannot travel far, knowing the layout of roads, rivers, hills, and forests might help. You might learn where to find water or where certain choke points are that could trap large groups of infected. Knowledge now is as precious as food. I have heard that in some places, survivors have started using smoke signals at dawn to show that they are still alive. A thin line of smoke rising from a hidden valley might mean a camp with living people. But smoke also draws attention. The infected might not understand it, but they may notice the movement of birds or animals disturbed by the smoke. Still, if you are desperate to find others, you might look for these signs. Time moves strangely now. Without normal life to mark the hours, we measure days by the sunlight and the length of our candles. Birthdays, holidays, and all those things that once mattered so much now fade into a single struggle for one more sunrise. If you find someone still celebrating something, even in a small way, like carving a mark on a wall each passing day, join them. Keeping track of time can help us remember that we are still human and not lost in an endless night. I think of my past before all this. I was never a strong person, never a hero. I worked a simple job, worried about ordinary things, spent evenings watching old shows or reading books. Now I cling to the memory of those stories in my head. Sometimes I whisper an old tale to myself, imagining I am telling it to someone who needs comfort. If you have a story, a memory of a better time, hold it close. If you find another survivor who is willing to listen, share it with them. Words are the last form of shelter we can build inside our minds. Some say that there are new forms of infected out there, ones that do not move slowly. I do not know if this is true, but if you ever see something faster, more aware, your best choice is to hide and pray it does not sense you. We have enough trouble with the slow ones. The idea of something worse is hard to bear. But be prepared for anything. This world is full of unpleasant surprises now. If you are listening to this broadcast with others, Do not speak loudly about it. Whisper your plans. Keep your voices down. Sound can travel far in these empty streets. The infected do not need much to start shambling your way. If you have a broken window or a gap in a wall, cover it with something that does not make noise when moved by the wind. Sometimes a piece of cloth is better than a sheet of metal if you want to avoid clanging sounds. It will not stop them if they push hard, but it might keep your presence hidden. Consider your rest as well. Exhaustion leads to mistakes, and mistakes can kill you now. Sleep in short shifts if you must, but try to rest your eyes. Even if you cannot sleep, close your eyes, breathe slowly, and calm your mind. Stress wears you down. In normal times, we could handle stress by talking to friends or going out for a walk. Now we must handle it by being still, focusing on what matters: survival. I have been at this station for some time now. I know I cannot stay here forever. My supplies are running low, and the small amount of fuel I had for the generator will not last many more days. When it runs out, I will lose my ability to speak to you like this. Maybe I will have to move on, carry this radio with me, and hope I find another power source. But I will try to stay on the air as long as I can. If I fade one day, do not think it means the end for you. There may be other voices, other signals. Keep searching. In some of the old houses, you might find letters left behind. People might have written notes before they fled or turned. Reading these notes can give you clues about safe spots, or simply remind you that once people cared enough to leave messages for strangers. That small kindness might lift your spirits. Beware of drinking from old water tanks without boiling the water first. Stagnant water can make you sick, and sickness without medicine is dangerous. A bad stomach or fever could make you weak, and weakness now is deadly. Take fewer risks with water and food. Check for mold, strange smells, or discoloration. If you ever find a place that seems completely untouched, be doubly careful. It might be that others already looted it and left traps, or that infected wait silently inside. An unlocked door is suspicious now. Check from a window first. Try tapping softly on a wall from outside to see if anything stirs within. Rushing in headlong could end badly. I remember when there were shelters set up by local authorities in the early days of the outbreak. People crowded into them, hoping for safety. It did not last. The infected found their way in, or panic set in among those inside. Now those shelters stand as grim reminders. If you must enter such a place, do it with great caution. They are often full of old bedding, scattered belongings, and broken barricades. This chaos can hide infected lying in wait. If you have a working flashlight with extra batteries, treasure it. Use it sparingly. Light at night is a gift, but can also give you away. Some survivors have made small covers for their flashlights, cutting down the beam so it does not shine too far. A narrow beam aimed at your feet is often enough to see where you step without lighting up a whole room. If the infected gather outside your hiding spot, do not panic. Stay quiet. Sometimes they will move on if they cannot see or hear anything. If they start pushing against your barriers, brace them from the inside as quietly as possible. If they break through, have a backup plan, maybe an escape route through a window. Keep rope handy for such events. I know all this sounds like a life of endless fear, but remember, every day you survive is a day you have beaten the odds. There may come a time when the infected grow fewer, or when survivors band together to clear small areas and start to rebuild. We cannot know what the future holds. For now, we hold on, because giving up means letting the darkness have us. I will try to picture your faces, you out there listening. Maybe a tired man in a store basement, holding a radio close to his ear. Maybe a small group in a barn, huddled around a tiny speaker, nodding at each other. Maybe a lone traveler on a rooftop, tuning in while watching the streets below. You are not alone, not completely. My voice reaches you, and your careful listening reaches me in spirit. Let me pause again and listen. I thought I heard a soft moan outside. Just a moment. Still quiet. It could have been the wind through broken glass. This building next door has several smashed windows, and when the wind passes through them, it makes a low sound that could be mistaken for a moan. Better safe than sorry. Caution is our shield now. If you find an old bicycle, As that traveler mentioned, consider using it. Bikes are quieter than cars and do not need fuel, but watch out for flat tires or broken chains. Carry a small repair kit if you have one. If you must go through towns, walk the bike quietly. Riding fast might draw attention if you hit loose debris and make sudden noise. It might be wise to think about heading for places where you can hide for a longer time. Tall apartment buildings with ladders you can pull up behind you might work. Forests thick with undergrowth can also conceal you, but remember that some infected might wander there too. Try to pick a place with at least one reliable source of fresh water and some shelter from rain and cold. We have no choice but to live simply now. The old world of gadgets and bright screens is gone. Now, a working knife or a sturdy coat means more than any fancy device. If you find tools, keep them. A hammer, a saw, a pair of pliers, these can help you build or fix shelters, open locked doors, or cut through barriers. Tools are worth their weight in gold now. I must keep my voice steady. Sometimes I feel my throat tighten with fear or sadness. But I will not cry or scream. That would be a waste of energy and might draw attention. I will breathe, focus, and keep sharing what I know. We help each other by passing along these small pieces of advice, these whispered bits of truth about how to stay alive in a world that seems determined to end us. Hold on. I think I see movement across the street. I will speak softly now. There is something there, behind a rusted car. It might be an infected. I can see a shape bending down as if sniffing the ground. I will watch carefully. I see it more clearly now. There is indeed an infected form crouched behind that old rusted car. It is leaning over something on the ground. I cannot tell what it might be eating or sniffing. There's no way to know if it has caught the scent of me or if it is just passing through. I will keep my voice low. If it comes closer, I may have to go silent for a while. This is a reminder to you. Never assume you are completely safe, even when indoors. These creatures can wander close at any moment. They do not act like normal creatures. They seem to drift with no purpose until something draws them. Any sound, sudden movement, or even a slight glow of light can bring them near. I remember something a survivor once shared on a weak radio signal. They said that wearing old clothes that smell like the earth, dirt, or damp leaves can sometimes mask a person's scent. They were not certain if this always works, but they believed it helped them slip past a group of infected once. If you have the chance to rub mud or dirt on your clothes before sneaking past them, it might help. But this is guesswork. We know so little for sure. That shape outside is shifting now. It stands upright, swaying slightly. The hair on its head is thin, its clothes torn and stained. From this distance, I see no sign that it noticed me. It stumbles forward a step, then another. I am safe for the moment. Still, my heart is beating fast. Even after all this time, the sight of them makes my skin crawl. If you are listening, perhaps you know this feeling. Maybe you have seen them up close. Watched them press their faces against a window, their blank eyes staring without emotion. Maybe you have hidden behind a curtain while several passed just outside, holding your breath until you thought your lungs might burst. This is our world now, a world of constant fear and careful steps. Let me tell you something else I recall hearing. There was a message once about a place near a wide river where survivors found a working hand pump for water. They guarded it day and night, taking turns sleeping in a small shed. They had a code of taps, much like that girl in the school building, to signal when it was safe to approach. Anyone who came silently and tapped back in the right pattern was given a cup of water, and if they had any spare, a handful of dried beans. But if a stranger made noise or tried to force their way in, they would lock down and wait until the danger passed. They said trust is earned now, not given freely. But they were willing to share a little, which is more than some do. I wish I had more good news. The infected have spread so far. The lack of any strong human presence means that after weeks or months, they roam without end. Some survivors have tried to follow old rail lines to find safer regions. Rails can guide you away from big roads. But remember that train stations and rail yards may hold clusters of infected. Still, rails run long and straight, sometimes leading out into the countryside, away from crowded places. If you travel along them, stay off the main path. Walk in the bushes beside them, Use the rails only as a guide, and be ready to duck behind shrubs if you see movement ahead. If you ever find an abandoned camp, check carefully for traps. Some survivors leave sharp stakes in the ground or rig noisemakers from cans and strings to warn them if anyone approaches. If you see something that looks out of place, a line of string at ankle height, a row of small stones arranged in a pattern, be cautious. It might signal a hidden alarm. Do not trigger it. It is sad that we must fear not only the infected, but also other survivors who may guard their resources with deadly methods. But this is what we face now. Humans, once so united by society, now scattered and uncertain, forced into guarded behavior. Yet, I believe kindness can still appear. There must be some who remember that we are all in this together. I hold on to that thought. The infected outside has wandered out of my line of sight now. I think it moved down the street. I will still keep my voice low. It is safer this way, and you never know who else might be listening. Sometimes I imagine that not only survivors tune in, but perhaps others with less kind intentions. So I will not reveal my exact location or any details that could give me away. You should do the same. If you broadcast your own signal, keep details vague. You can describe general areas, but not your exact shelter. Safety first. I recall another story. A man who lived in an old cabin far from any town. He managed to set snares for small game, rabbits mainly, and he boiled water from a nearby stream. He even had a small pile of logs for a fire. He said he would sit for hours, just watching the trees sway, listening for any sign of infected. Once he saw 3 of them pass by at a distance, but they never noticed him. He stayed still, hardly breathing, until they were gone. He said that for a moment he felt almost at peace out there, away from the crumbling remains of what we called civilization. I wonder if he still lives. Maybe he does, quietly waiting out the days. If you have any skill in repairing old items, it can help. A pair of shoes too large for your feet can still be cut and tied to fit. A broken door can be patched with scrap wood. Even an empty can can serve as a container for boiling water or for setting up a crude alarm. The world is full of junk that once had no value, but now might save your life. Creativity matters. Light rain is starting outside. I can hear small drops tapping on the roof. Rain can help mask some noises, but also makes footsteps slippery. If you must move now, choose shoes with good grip and step carefully. Wet wood can creak more loudly. Wet leaves can make soft squishing sounds that might draw attention. Night is not far off. The days are shorter now, and we must be careful as darkness comes. If you are planning to move, do so soon, or find a safe place to wait until morning. The infected do not rest at night, but we see even less in the dark. Without good night vision, we risk stumbling into their arms. I have been thinking about a safer place myself. Somewhere I could move to if this station becomes unsafe. Perhaps there is a farm a few miles away, with a cellar I could hide in. But to get there, I would need to slip past many infected, and I do not have much strength left in my legs. For now, I will stay here and keep talking as long as I can. My purpose now is to give you something, anything, that helps you hold on. Let's talk about quiet signals. If you meet another survivor at a distance, raise your hand slowly and hold it still. Do not wave or shout. If they do the same, you can try to move closer at a slow pace, each step measured. Whisper if you must communicate. If they look nervous or raise a weapon, back away. Safety may depend on leaving them be. Not everyone is ready to trust. If you find an old book, keep it. Reading can calm the mind during long, quiet hours. Even a book you do not understand fully might help you remember that we once had libraries and schools. It might seem useless now, but your mind needs hope and calm. Just do not read aloud. Words spoken too loud might draw unwanted ears. If you happen upon old farmland, check the soil for hidden roots. Even if the fields are overgrown, there might be potatoes, turnips, or onions left in the ground. They can last a long time below the surface. Dig quietly and gently. Watch for infected roaming between overgrown rows. The old scarecrows stand guard with empty eyes now, but they cannot help you. It is you against the quiet world. I once heard a rumor of a small group that managed to rig a simple wind-powered charger for batteries. They climbed onto a small hill, set up a crude wind blade from scrap metal and cloth, and linked it to an old car battery. When the wind turned the blade, it put a small charge back into the battery. With this, they could power a flashlight, or even a tiny radio for a short time each day. If this is true, it shows that humans can still find ways to cope. If you find such a setup, do not break it. Respect what others have built. Maybe you can trade help later. As time passes, the infected might decay further. Perhaps after enough months or years, they will become too weak to move, and we can slowly return to clearing areas and planting again. This is just a guess. No one knows how long they last. Until then, we must treat them as a constant danger. If you are stuck in a high-rise building, consider that the lower floors might be full of infected. If you still have access to the roof, you might lower a rope ladder down the outside of the building to escape, avoiding the main halls and stairwells. This is risky, but it might save you if you are trapped. Be sure the rope is strong enough to hold your weight and tie it well to something solid. Small fires are safer than large ones. If you must cook or boil water, a tiny flame shielded by metal or bricks can reduce smoke and light. The less noticeable you are, the better. Smell can travel on the wind, so try not to cook strong-smelling foods if you think infected are nearby. Bland and simple is safer now. If you are lucky enough to find a companion who can share the burden, do not waste that chance. Talk quietly, plan together, split watch shifts. 2 pairs of eyes are better than 1, and 2 minds can solve problems better than 1 alone. But always be honest and fair. If you cheat or harm your companion, you might end up alone again, or worse. The infected seem less active when the air is still. On windy days, they might turn their heads, as if sensing something they cannot understand. I have seen them cluster near certain spots, perhaps drawn by an old sound or scent trapped in a building. If you see a cluster, never try to sneak through them. Wait until they disperse or find another route. Patience can mean the difference between life and death. I know we have lost much, but as long as we breathe, we have a chance. That chance is what keeps me talking. I imagine that my words float through empty rooms, down quiet streets, across fields of tall grass, into the ears of someone who needs to hear them. Maybe that someone is you. Maybe you are nodding right now, whispering thanks under your breath. I cannot hear you, but I feel your presence. When searching houses, look for canned goods first. Listen before you enter. Press your ear against the door. If you hear shuffling inside, back away. If it sounds quiet, open the door slowly. Keep your eyes low. Watch for feet first before looking higher. The infected often stand still until they sense movement. If you see none, step inside softly. Check cupboards and drawers, but do not slam them. If you find nothing, leave quickly. If you find something, beans, tuna, anything edible, take it and go. Do not linger. If you find a bicycle horn or anything that can make noise at a distance, you might be able to use it as a distraction. Place it far from where you plan to go and sound it, then slip away while the infected head toward the noise. But be careful not to trap yourself. Think ahead. Once they gather, they might block your path back. The rain outside is getting heavier. I can hear it drumming on the roof. This might be a good time for some of you to move if you need to, as the rain will mask some sounds. But also remember that thunder, if it comes, can frighten you into making a sudden move. Stay calm. Breathe slowly, every step planned. I will try to rest soon, but I want to keep going a bit longer. My battery is holding for now. The generator gave me some power earlier. I store it in a small battery pack. When that runs dry, I will need to crank the old hand dynamo I found. It is tiring, but it gives a short burst of electricity. Maybe you can find something similar if you search old garages or sheds. If the infected break into your current shelter and you must run, do not grab too much. Take only what you can carry without slowing down. Better to lose some cans of food than your life. Travel light if you must flee. Heavy packs make noise and slow you down. Keep essentials close at hand so you can pick them up and run on short notice. I recall someone mentioning that in certain regions, crows and other birds have learned to follow infected hordes, pecking at scraps they drop. If you see a large number of crows circling an area, it might mean infected are there. Birds can act as a warning sign. Watch the wildlife. Even small animals might guide you. If you see a place where even the birds do not land, be very careful. You might wonder if there are places where radio signals are stronger. Some high locations, like hills or tall buildings, might give you a better radio range. But higher spots can also make you visible. If you must broadcast, do it quickly, and then fall silent. Wait a while before broadcasting again, in case anyone unfriendly tries to find you. Caution rules now. If someone calls out to you on the radio offering great promises of food and safety, be wary. It could be a trap. The world is not kind anymore. Trust must be earned. If you decide to approach a meeting point, watch from afar before making contact. Look for signs of infected or suspicious behavior. Do not walk into any place blindly. I find myself whispering again, even though the infected I saw is gone. The habit of speaking softly is becoming natural. Maybe that is good. A quieter world forces us to respect silence. We never valued silence before. Now silence can save us. If you have found a quiet place to rest and have enough food for a day or two, consider staying put until you regain strength. Traveling hungry and tired leads to mistakes. A short rest can sharpen your senses again. Just make sure your resting place is secure and keep watch in turns if you are not alone. If you are alone, do your best to stay awake until you are sure the area is clear. Then sleep lightly, waking often to listen. I know it is hard, but we must adapt to these ways of living. I think often about what life might be if we find a safe area. Maybe a small group could clear out a few blocks, set up high walls, and create a new start. Plant seeds, gather clean water, raise children without fear. It might take a long time, but do not lose that dream. Even if you never see it, knowing it is possible might keep you going. Remember to care for your health. If you get a small cut, clean it with what you have. Infection of any kind, not the main one, but the regular type that comes from germs, can weaken you. Weakness now is not something you can afford. If you find old bandages or cloth, keep them clean and dry. Rotate your socks if you have extra, to prevent foot sores. Little things that once seemed trivial now matter. The rain is slowing down. I hear only a soft drip now. If you must head out, watch for puddles. They reflect light and can give you away if you shine any beam, even a small one. Step around them. The darkness outside is deepening. The streets must look eerie now, with broken lampposts and empty shops. If you were once familiar with these roads, try not to dwell too long on how they have changed. Such thoughts may lead to sadness that will weaken your resolve. We must focus on what needs to be done to survive. If anyone out there has managed to form a small group that is thriving, I hope someday you find a way to spread that news. Good news can lift spirits. Until then, we live on rumors and whispered stories. I will pause to listen once more. Just a moment. I think we are still alone here. I must stop soon to gather my thoughts and perhaps try to sleep. But I will keep going a little longer. This broadcast might be all you have right now, and I owe you what comfort I can give. If dawn comes and you still have not found food, remember that many small animals still roam the outskirts of towns. Squirrels, rats, maybe even stray cats or dogs if they have survived. I know it is hard to consider such things as food, but hunger can push us to do what we never considered before. Just be careful. Approaching any animal might make noise, and a sudden movement can bring infected from around corners. If you find old fruit trees, check the ground for anything edible. It might be rotten or half-eaten by insects, but sometimes you can salvage a bit. Scrape off bad parts, and boil if you can. We cannot be picky now. Always remember, stay quiet, move slowly, watch all sides, and trust nothing at first glance. These are the simple rules of this new life. Do not lose hope, because as long as you breathe, you have a chance. Even if you only survive one more day, that is a victory. I will rest my voice for now. Be safe out there, whoever you are. I have rested a bit, and the night has deepened. The darkness outside presses against these old boards. I can feel my own breath, slow and steady. and I imagine you out there, doing the same. Each quiet breath is a small victory. It is strange how we measure time now. No steady clock, no daily routines as before. Just the changes in light, the hunger in our bellies, the ache in our backs. We mark time by moments of calm between dangers. If you are listening, maybe you have found a corner that feels safe for now. Cherish it, but keep your guard up. I recall a rumor I once caught in a faint broadcast. Someone claimed there was a narrow valley in the west where a small stream still runs clear. They said several survivors gathered there and built hidden shelters covered with old tarps and branches. They scattered leaves and dirt over the roofs, so from a distance it looks like the forest floor. They keep quiet, use hand signals among themselves, and move in pairs. With patience, they began to gather wild berries and mushrooms. They said the infected did wander through the woods at times, but because the shelters were so well hidden and no one spoke above a whisper, the infected passed by. If that is true, it shows that careful thought and teamwork can create a pocket of safety. We must remember that the infected cannot climb very well if the handholds are not easy. A smooth wall or a rope pulled up behind you can keep them from reaching you. If you can find a flat roof with no direct stairs up, climb it and then pull your ladder away. You might spend the night on that roof, hidden from their sight. Just watch out for the morning sun, which will reveal you if you stand too tall against the skyline. If you have a small mirror, it can be useful for looking around corners without showing your face. You can hold it at an angle to see if anything waits down a hall. This trick might save you from walking into danger. Mirrors were once tools for grooming and decoration. Now they become a means of survival. I once heard someone say that certain old stores still have canned food if you know where to look. High shelves, out-of-reach spots that people missed when they fled in panic. But be careful with tall shelves. If something falls with a loud crash, you might draw infected. Better to climb quietly or build a makeshift step from crates. Slow, careful moves. This is how we must live now. If you have something like chalk or charcoal, you can mark quiet symbols on walls to remember safe paths. Maybe an arrow scratched behind a door frame or a small mark on a fence post. Do not leave anything too obvious that might lead trouble to your shelter. Simple codes only you understand can help you navigate if you must leave and return later. I wonder if anyone has tried radio Morse code again. A simple pattern of short and long signals could let others know you are alive without speaking. But that requires working gear and steady nerves. Few have that now. Still, keep your mind open to old methods. The past holds many secrets that might help us now. If you find clothing that fits well and is quiet, soft fabrics that do not rustle much, wear it. Avoid synthetic materials that might make a lot of noise when you move. Dark colors help at night, though be mindful that in daylight you might absorb heat. Balance your needs. Also, consider layering clothes for warmth, because you never know when cold air might drift in. I recall a man's voice once, crackling through the radio, who said he had met a traveling pair who carried a large bag of dried beans. They would trade a handful of beans for useful items like a working lighter or a sturdy tool. They said beans lasted long, were easy to store, and could be soaked and cooked with very little equipment. Think about simple foods that do not spoil quickly. Dried foods are gold now. If you are in a place where you hear moans at night, try stuffing cloth in any cracks where sound can escape. Dull any noise you make. If they cannot pinpoint you, they might wander off. Some survivors swear by hanging strips of cloth or damp rags in doorways to absorb sound. Every small trick might help. If you have lost track of how many days have passed since it all began, do not worry. Counting days may not matter now. What matters is surviving until your next meal, your next safe rest, your next quiet dawn. Do not waste energy mourning the old calendars. I think about the faces of people I knew before all this. It hurts, but it also reminds me that I am still human, with a memory of what once was. Let yourself remember who you were, what you cared about. It may give you the strength to keep going. If you have any chance to gather rainwater, do it. Place buckets or bowls outside when it rains, then boil it if you can. Clean water can be hard to find. Streams may be safer than city pipes, but still boil to be sure. If you have no fuel for a fire, let the water sit for a while and strain it through cloth. It is not perfect, but better than nothing. Some survivors say that at times you can trick infected by throwing a small object in one direction while you slip away in another. A rock tossed against a wall can create a brief distraction. But be sure you have cover when you do this. If you stand in open view, they might see you anyway. If you must travel in a group, plan hand signals for stop, go, quiet, danger. Words carry on the air, but a silent gesture might save your life. Practice these signals before you head out so everyone understands them clearly. I remember a story told by a quiet voice on the radio. They said they found an old root cellar behind a farmhouse. Inside were jars of pickled vegetables, dusty but sealed. Enough food to last a week or more. This gave them the energy to reinforce the farmhouse doors and block off windows. With that, they created a small safe spot for a time. If you are lucky enough to find stored food that is still good, guard it well and use it wisely. If you ever face a locked door you must open, try gentle methods first. Forcing it open with a loud crash is never ideal. Maybe you can find a small window or a side entrance. The direct approach often leads to noise, and noise brings trouble. Firearms might seem helpful, but remember they are loud. One shot can bring many infected your way. If you must use one, choose your moment carefully, have an escape route, and do not fire blindly. Also, ammunition is rare now. Do not waste it. A sturdy stick or a crowbar can be just as good as anything else if you know how to swing it silently. Aim for the head if you must engage, but only if you are sure there are no others nearby. Stealth is your best friend. Running quietly is often better than fighting. Some survivors prefer living near water. They say infected can move through shallow water, but not very fast. If you have a small boat and can row quietly, you might escape by drifting down a stream. Just watch for debris and snags that could flip you over. A quiet journey on water might lead you to safer ground. If you ever find a written note from someone who once lived in a place, read it carefully. They might have left clues about where they stored supplies or where it was safest to hide. Human voices recorded on paper can still guide us, even if they are gone. If you face a door with scratching sounds behind it, do not open it unless you must. Move on and find another path. Curiosity killed many who thought they could peek inside. Survive first, satisfy curiosity never. Try to keep track of how much food and water you have left. Estimate how long it will last. If you see it running low, make a plan to search for more soon. Desperation leads to rash decisions, so prepare while you still have a bit left. If you find clothing that is too large, you can cut strips from it to use as bandages or to muffle door hinges. Nothing is waste now. Everything has a purpose if you think hard enough. In the distance, I sometimes think I hear distant gunshots, rare and muffled. Someone out there might be fighting or signaling. I never know who they are or what fate awaits them. The sound fades, and I am left with silence again. If you must cross an open area, do it at dawn when the light is not too bright and shadows are long. You can move from shadow to shadow, keeping low. At midday, your shadow is small, and you stand out more. At dusk, vision fades, but so does your ability to see danger. Dawn might be the best time, when the world is just waking up. If you find an empty bird's nest with old eggs, do not eat them raw. Boil them if you can. If not, sniff them first. Rotten eggs will make you sick, and sickness now is a big risk. Any illness that weakens you might cost your life. If you manage to form a small group, consider simple chores divided among you. One watches, one gathers water, one checks for food. Rotate these tasks so no one gets too tired. Working together quietly can keep you alive. Just remember that trust is fragile now. Be fair. Do not steal from each other. If you hear infected passing by outside your shelter, do not move. Sometimes even a creaking floorboard can draw them in. If you must shift your weight, do it very slowly. Wait until they are well away before you breathe easily again. Old furniture can be broken down into boards for barricades. Chairs, tables, doors, all can be rearranged to block entrances or create small hiding spots. Think of your shelter as something you can shape to fit your needs. If you know how to set a simple snare in the woods, it might catch small game. Just remember to check it quietly and remove it if you must leave, so you do not leave signs for others to follow. Also, be careful where you place it. Stumbling into your own trap would be a cruel joke. The moon is out, pale and silent in the sky. Before, we might have admired it from a rooftop with friends. Now we glance at it just enough to see our surroundings. The night sky still holds stars, and if you know a few, they can guide you north or south. Stars remain steady, even when our world falls apart. If someone has a wound, keep it clean. If you have no proper bandages, use boiled cloth. Change it often. A small cut can become a big problem if it gets infected, the normal kind, not the one that makes them rise but still dangerous. Good hygiene might save your life. If your shoes are worn thin, stuff them with cloth to cushion your feet. You must protect your feet. You will walk a lot now, and a bad blister can slow you down at the worst time. If you stumble upon a place that looks looted, think about what they might have left behind. People often overlook hidden spots like under floorboards or inside hollow bed frames, but do not spend too long searching. Grab what you can find quickly and leave. If you meet another survivor who is willing to trade, keep it quiet and fair. Do not show all your supplies. Keep something hidden in case they change their mind. Trust slowly, over time, not all at once. Listen to the wind. Sometimes, if infected are moving in a large group, you might hear a distant chorus of moans carried by the breeze. If you hear that, do not go in that direction. Change your path. If you sleep in shifts, agree on a quiet way to wake the next person without startling them. A gentle tap on the shoulder, a slight nudge. Avoid whispering their name if you can, as even a whisper can carry in a silent room. Nonverbal signals can be safer. If you have a fishing line and hook and you find a quiet stream, you might catch something small to eat. Fish are silent food. Just keep your movements gentle and avoid splashing. If infected come to the water's edge, stay still. They might lose interest if you do not move. Remember that the infected do not act out of reason. They do not think ahead or set traps in any deliberate way. Still, their presence makes all other dangers worse. A broken ladder is not just an inconvenience. It can trap you. A locked door is not just a delay, it can force you to make noise. Everything that was once a small problem is now huge. If you find candles, ration them. Light them only when needed. A candle can give away your position, but it can also let you read a map or dress a wound. Use it wisely. Shield the flame from windows. Sometimes I think I see lights in the distance, maybe other survivors doing the same as me, trying to hold on. I cannot be sure. Lights can be illusions or reflections of the moon on broken glass. I do not risk going out to check. I stay put. If you become trapped in a room with one exit and infected outside, check if there is a way to break through a wall quietly. Sometimes old plaster or wood can be removed piece by piece. It takes patience, but might give you another route. If you have nothing to lose, you might take a risk. But if you have food and shelter, think twice before going on a wild search. Better to wait a day and plan. Rash moves lead to fatal errors now. Patience pays off. Remember that some animals still survive out there. Birds, rodents, maybe even deer in the distant countryside. They do not gather like the infected do, so if you see animals acting normal, it might mean fewer infected around. Watch nature's signs. If birds sing, maybe it is quieter in that area. If they fall silent, maybe something is near. If you manage to grow something from seeds, a tiny garden hidden behind a fence, guard it well. This might be your long-term solution. Just keep it hidden from wandering eyes. Both infected and desperate survivors might try to take what you have. Always have a backup plan. If your main shelter is discovered or compromised, know where you can run. Maybe a second spot you prepared in advance with a small cache of supplies. That way, if you must flee, you will not run empty-handed into the wild. I must rest again soon. My voice is wearing thin, and the night is long. I will continue as long as I have strength, because I know someone out there needs to hear this. When day breaks, I might try to look outside carefully, see if anything changed. But for now, silence and caution rule this world. Hold on to whatever hope you have. Hope that someday these streets might be cleared. Hope that you might find others who remember how to live kindly. Hope that you can see another sunrise without fear. If hope is all we have, then let it keep your heart warm. I will pause now and be quiet for a moment. Be safe, wherever you are. I did not sleep well. The night was filled with distant creaks and the soft drip of rain. I must have dozed off at some point, because I remember a dream. I dreamed of a time before all this, Walking along a quiet street at dusk, hearing laughter from a window, the smell of fresh bread drifting in the air. Waking up to this silent, broken world makes the memory feel like a distant star, cold and unreachable. Still, I hold it close inside my mind. I check my surroundings. The boards over the windows are still in place. My makeshift barricade at the door has not moved. I see no sign of forced entry. That means I survived another night. So did you, I hope. If you're listening, that means you are still here with me, in spirit. Let's face another day as best we can. The streets outside remain empty, but empty means little now. At any moment, one of them could shuffle around a corner, drawn by nothing more than a slight scent on the breeze. I must be careful if I step out later. Before that, I will share more of what I know, or at least what I think might help. If you have tape or glue, it can mend torn shoes or patch cracks in bottles that carry water. Simple repairs can keep your few supplies lasting longer. Every tiny step to preserve what you have can prevent a risky outing to search for replacements. I recall hearing from a person who managed to send out a short broadcast days ago. They said they had found a cluster of fruit trees behind an old farmhouse orchard. The fruit was mostly fallen and half rotten, but by cutting away the bad parts, they got enough to fill their belly for a day. They spread the pieces on a wooden board in the sun to dry them. Dried fruit can last longer and can be carried without spoiling quickly. Keep this in mind if you find old orchards or gardens. Some survivors mention that in areas where cars were left running or crashed during the outbreak, the smell of old fuel or burning might still linger. Infected do not seem to care about these smells, but for you, it might cause coughing. Wear a cloth over your face if you pass through such places. Any strong smell or chemical in the air could weaken you, and weakness is not something you can afford. If your clothing is wet from rain, try to wring it out and let it dry quietly. Wet clothes cause chills and can make you cough. A cough in a quiet room can give you away. Also, avoid sitting on damp surfaces for long. Moisture leads to discomfort and can make you clumsy. Some speak of nights colder than before. Seasons still pass, even if we barely notice them. If cooler air is coming, gather warm clothes. If you find blankets, keep them dry and folded. A warm night's rest can give you clearer thoughts in the morning. Also, if cold sets in, infected might move more slowly, their limbs stiffening. That could be a slight advantage if you can stand the chill. If you have managed to make any friend out there, consider teaching them what you know. Share quiet signals. Share a bit of food if you can spare it. Even small acts of care can mean a lot now. But do not give all your supplies away. Balance kindness with caution. I think about the empty offices and stores, once full of people going about their days. Now they are just shells. Sometimes these offices have break rooms with sealed snacks, old crackers, or dried cereal in sealed boxes. If you take a careful look, you might find something edible. Watch for signs of rats or insects, though. If the package is chewed open, be careful. Eating spoiled food can make you ill. Many survivors have mentioned that they rely on the rhythm of their own body to tell time. Hunger for breakfast, the brightness of the sky, the angle of shadows. Learn to read the sun's path. If you can see a certain landmark through a gap, note where the sun rises in relation to it. Over a few days, you might learn a simple pattern to guess the hour. This can help you plan outings. If you dare to enter a large building, like a hospital or a mall, do so only if you have no other choice. These places were crowded during the outbreak. There may be many infected inside. Every step on cracked tiles might echo. If you must go in, try a side entrance. Move slowly. Listen for any scrape or moan before turning corners. Keep your escape route in mind. The infected do not respond to words. Calling out to them makes no sense. Yet I remember someone who tried to talk to them, hoping they might recall something human. They did not. Their eyes remained vacant, their faces slack. They are gone, replaced by a hunger that knows no mercy. If your shelter has multiple rooms, consider blocking off all but one or two that you actually use. Fewer rooms mean fewer points of entry to guard. Keep your main supplies in the most secure room. If forced to flee, have a small bag ready with essentials, a can or two of food, a water bottle, a tool, and some cloth. Grab it and run if you must. If the days feel long and empty, remember that every moment is a gift. You are alive. That means you have a chance to find something new tomorrow. Maybe a hint of other survivors. Maybe an old radio battery that still holds a charge. Maybe a corner of land with wild edible plants. Hope thrives on possibilities, no matter how faint. I have not heard other voices on the radio lately, just static. Perhaps my range is limited, or others have gone silent to stay safe. It is lonely, but I understand. Survival often means hiding, even from your own kind. If you send out signals, do it sparingly. Turn the volume low so only you can hear it. You do not want the infected to pick up the sound and draw closer. If you find old photographs, they might remind you of what we lost. It can hurt. Still, holding a memory of better times may give you the will to keep going. If it makes you too sad, put it away. Focus on what keeps you steady. Everyone copes differently. Think about finding a vantage point if you want to travel. A second-story window or a rooftop can let you survey the streets below. Watch for patterns. Do infected gather near certain intersections? Do they follow a route at certain times of day? Learning their habits might help you avoid them. Patience and observation are your allies. If you have candles or lanterns, use them in a room with covered windows. Even a faint glow can leak outside if you are not careful. Hang thick cloth over windows at night if you must have light. Let no flicker escape. Darkness hides you better than any weapon. If you have found any kind of berries or mushrooms in the wild, be careful. Some can make you sick. If you do not know which are safe, try smelling them first. If they smell foul or make your tongue tingle just from touching them, do not eat them. Risking illness for a small snack is not wise. Stick to what you know, or test a tiny amount and wait to see if you feel ill before eating more. Better yet, focus on foods you trust: canned goods, grains, dried legumes. If moving through a wooded area, listen to the birds. If they suddenly go quiet, something might be near. Maybe infected or a large animal. If you scare a flock of birds and they take off loudly, that might draw attention. Move slowly, avoid snapping twigs. Treat the forest like a library, where any loud sound brings a stern warning. If you spot smoke in the distance, it could mean survivors with a fire, or it could mean a building burning. Fires can happen if old electrical wires short out, or if lightning strikes. Approach smoke with caution. It might lead you to help or to a trap. If you go, circle wide and watch from afar before getting close. It might help to keep your mind active during quiet hours. Whisper a story you remember. Hum softly. Think of old lessons learned in school. A calm mind can keep fear from overwhelming you. But keep it quiet. Never lose track of silence. Some say the infected gather more in certain places, like old markets or large halls, as if drawn by old sense of human presence that once filled those spots. If this is true, avoid such places. Go for smaller structures, simple homes, sheds, barns. They might hold less valuable items, but they are safer to search. If you meet a survivor who seems kind, you can offer a small trade. Even a handful of nuts or a spare cloth might earn you a map sketch or a tip about a safe route. Keep trades simple and fair. Try not to reveal where you stay or how much you have. Information is as valuable as food now. If your shoes wear out, you could try wrapping your feet in layered cloth and rope. Not ideal, but better than walking barefoot on broken glass and sharp stones. Improvised footwear can save you from painful cuts that slow you down. If thunder rolls across the sky, consider that lightning might strike trees or old power lines. A sudden noise might draw infected temporarily, but also mask your own sounds if you use it cleverly. Wait for thunder to rumble, then move a few steps. They might not detect your movement if their senses are muddled by the roar of nature. If you carry any sharp tool, a knife, a small axe, keep it clean. Rust makes the tool weaker and can break it at a bad time. Wipe it dry after use. Store it in a cloth wrap. Treat your tools with respect. They are your lifeline now. I try not to think too hard about large cities. They must be full of infected, trapped inside buildings or roaming the empty streets. The old comforts of city life are gone. If you must pass through a city, do it on the outskirts if possible. Stick to side roads, alleys, and go slowly. The heart of the city may be too dangerous. If you find a bicycle that still has air in the tires, treat it like gold. Quiet movement is key, and a bicycle is silent compared to a car. Just remember that pedaling too fast might cause you to lose balance if you hit debris. Go slow, keep your head up, watch for movement, and never ring any bells. Silence above all. If you have the chance to set small snares for animals, remember to mark their location in your mind. Check them quietly. If they are empty, reset them or move them. If they catch something, kill it quickly and silently. Then leave the area. The smell of blood can attract unwanted attention. If you get a cut or scrape, clean it with the purest water you have and wrap it with clean cloth. Change the dressing often. You cannot afford to let a small wound fester. Infection can make you weak, and weakness in this world is a death sentence. Keep track of how often you see infected. If you notice their numbers growing, you might need to move to a quieter spot. If their numbers seem fewer, maybe you have a chance to scavenge more thoroughly. Patterns can guide your decisions. Do not rely on luck alone. Always have at least 2 plans. One for if things go well, and one for if they go wrong. For instance, if you plan to enter a building, also note a window you can break to escape if infected appear inside. If you have any salt, sugar, or spices, they can improve the taste of bland food. Also, salt can help preserve meat if you manage to hunt an animal. But these items are rare now. Use them sparingly. They might also be valuable for trading. If your sleeping spot is on a hard floor, place layers of cloth or old newspapers under you. It can help reduce noise if you toss in your sleep, and it keeps you a bit more comfortable. Better sleep means sharper senses in the morning. If you find a place that seems too quiet and too perfect, be suspicious. Always watch from cover before entering. See if you spot any sign of movement. Sometimes infected lie still, silent, until something stirs them. Patience again might save your life. If a path is blocked by a car or debris, do not climb over it without checking the other side. Infected might be waiting there. Peek around, use a mirror if you have one, or listen for a while. Rushing forward blindly is not wise. Think of ways to store food that does not require cooking. A handful of nuts, dried fruit, even dry cereal if you find it. Cooking smells travel, and smoke can give you away. Cold meals might be safer, even if less tasty. If you ever find working batteries, guard them well. A flashlight in the dark can mean escape. A short radio call might save you. Do not waste batteries on non-essentials. Turn devices off when not in use. If you are really desperate for food, you might consider insects. It is unpleasant, but some are edible if cooked. Just be sure not to eat bright-colored ones or those that smell bad. If you do this, do it over a small flame and quickly. Then move on. Keep in mind the direction of the wind if you are near infected. If the wind blows from you to them, they might catch a hint of your scent. If it blows from them to you, you might smell them first. Understanding wind direction can help you choose a safer route. If your clothing is bright, consider smearing it with dirt or ashes to dull the color. A bright jacket can catch the eye of infected or even hostile survivors. Blend into the background as best you can. If you find a safe well, protect it. Do not let infected or animals fall into it. Cover it at night. A clean water source is priceless. If you cannot protect it fully, at least mark it in your mind so you know where to return when you need water. If you meet someone who claims to know a large safe camp, be careful. Ask quiet questions. Watch their eyes. Look for signs they might be lying. If they cannot give simple directions or a clear path, maybe they are tricking you. Do not follow blindly. Trust your instincts. If you have matches or a lighter, use them wisely. Fire can cook food, boil water, and warm you, but also draw attention. Choose sheltered spots where smoke disperses quickly. Maybe under a fallen roof or behind a broken wall. Keep flames low and short-lived. Observe the state of infected you see. Are they missing limbs, dragging feet, slow and stumbling? This might mean they are older or weaker. If they look fresh, move away faster. Fresher infected might be a bit stronger. These small details can help you know what you face. If rain returns, you can try to wash yourself quietly outdoors. Staying clean reduces the chance of disease and keeps your scent lower. Just do not scrub loudly or splash. Treat bathing as a stealth activity, like everything else. If you must write notes or signs for other survivors, keep them brief and clear. Something like, "Safe well west 2 miles, keep quiet," might help someone someday. Just do not write anything that reveals your shelter or your resources. A quiet mind can think clearer. If you panic, you might drop something, trip, or make noise. Practice slow breathing when fear grips you. Count your breaths silently. Focus on each inhale and exhale. Fear is natural, but do not let it control you. If you have rope, find many uses for it. Climbing, tying doors shut, lowering supplies from windows. Rope is a key tool now. If it frays, tie knots to shorten it, but keep it usable. You might hear whispering wind through broken pipes at night. It can sound like voices. Remember, it is likely just the wind. Do not call out in reply. That would be a waste of breath and might draw attention. Stay calm and rational. If your health is failing, you must rest. A minor fever or a bad cough could turn deadly if you do not pause and let your body recover. Find a safe spot, stay warm, drink water if you can, and wait until you feel stronger. Rushing around weak will get you caught off guard. If you see a chance to watch infected from a safe distance for a while, do it. Learn how they move, how they react to certain sounds, how long they linger in one spot. Knowledge is power now. The more you understand them, the better your odds of slipping past. In rare cases, you might see infected tangled in fences or trapped behind debris. Do not linger near them. They may not escape right now, but noise or movement could free them. Move on quickly and quietly. If large groups of infected move through an area, wait until they have gone far before you follow. Sometimes stragglers trail behind the group. Be sure the area is truly clear before stepping out. Patience again, always patience. The light outside is growing. It might be morning, a new day, another chance. I will try to gather my strength. Talking helps me stay calm, and I hope listening helps you. We continue, step by step, breath by breath, holding on to what we can. I have been speaking for a long time, and though I have not heard a response, I trust that someone might be there, listening quietly. The world outside remains changed and broken, but our struggle goes on. Let's hold on a bit longer together. Let's share what we can, even if it is just these words. As morning light grows, the shadows shift on the street. I see shapes of old cars, fallen signs, and cracked pavement. No movement for now. Maybe the infected wandered elsewhere during the night. This could be a good time to slip outside if you need supplies. Remember all the advice given so far. Move slowly, watch every corner, keep your ears open. If you find an old shop with a locked back room, think carefully before forcing it open. A closed door could hide infected, or it could hide precious supplies. If you must open it, try pressing your ear against it first. Tap softly and listen for any response. If there is silence, you still cannot be sure, but it may be worth the risk. If you have a small mirror or a reflective surface, slide it under the door if there is a gap to see if anything moves inside. Keep track of odd sounds in the distance. Sometimes, distant crashes or bangs occur when a building finally collapses or animals knock something over. Such noises might attract infected, drawing them away from your area. If you hear a loud sound far away, consider waiting a bit. Maybe it will pull infected from your path, giving you a window to move. If you have found a companion, treasure their company. A whispered word of comfort or a simple nod can ease the weight of fear. Just remember to keep quiet and never raise your voice in anger. Conflict now can cost both of you dearly. If you stumble upon a place with old tools, hammers, nails, pliers, take what you can carry. You might need these tools to fix a door or remove a barrier. Wrap them in cloth so they do not clank as you walk. Noise is your enemy. If infected block your path, wait them out if you can. They often move along after a while, drawn by who knows what. Patience can save your life. If waiting is not possible, and you must slip by, try to keep an obstacle between you and them, moving quietly along a wall. If they show signs of noticing you, freeze immediately. Sometimes they lose interest if you remain perfectly still. If you have a scrap of map, mark safe spots where you found food or water. Mark areas where you saw large groups of infected so you can avoid them later. Even a rough map in your mind can help you plan routes more safely. Without phones or devices, we return to simple methods. Try not to think too much about how long this will last. Worrying about the future can paralyze you. Focus on the next step, the next meal, the next safe rest. Surviving day by day is all we can do now. Hope that someday things will improve, but do not let despair stop you from taking care of yourself today. If you manage to find a quiet stream, check if it has fish. Even small ones can provide protein. Fashion a makeshift fishing line from thread and a small bent hook if you have it. Patience again comes into play. Be still and try not to cast a shadow over the water. Quick movements scare fish away. If you find a locked vehicle, it might have supplies in the trunk, but breaking a window to get inside is risky. It makes noise and leaves broken glass that crunches underfoot. If you must, wrap your hand and arm with cloth to break the glass more quietly and remove loose shards carefully. Still, consider if the risk is worth it. If you notice infected acting strangely, lingering in one spot, scratching at doors, clustering around something unseen, give them a wide berth. We know little about their patterns, only that they are dangerous. Any strange behavior might mean heightened risk. If you find any sort of container with a tight lid, jars, bottles, save them. They can hold water or small amounts of food. Keep your supplies organized so you know what you have at a glance. Digging through a bag noisily at a critical moment could be fatal. If you become injured, even a sprained ankle, rest until you can move quietly again. Limping and stumbling create noise and slow you down. Better to lose a day to rest than to lose your life trying to move while injured. Think about signals with your companion, if you have one. A light tap on the shoulder could mean stop, 2 taps mean follow, and so forth. This way you can communicate even when you must remain silent. Simple touch signals might save you time and noise. If the sky grows dark with storm clouds, consider how to use the rain to your advantage. Heavy rain can mask footsteps, let you approach a building more safely, or allow you to gather rainwater in containers. Just remember that slippery ground can cause falls. Do not forget to check under beds, behind curtains, and inside cupboards if you have entered a house to scavenge. The infected might be trapped inside small spaces. Once, I heard a survivor say they found an infected curled inside a bathtub, silent, until they approached. Always be ready to retreat if something moves unexpectedly. If you find a place with working doors and a second floor, consider making your shelter upstairs and removing the staircase or ladder. If infected break into the ground floor, you can drop heavy objects down to deter them or slip out a window on a rope. Height can be an advantage. If at any point you feel as if you are losing hope, try to recall something pleasant from the past. Maybe the taste of fresh bread, the sound of a friend's laughter, the warmth of a campfire on a camping trip long ago. These memories remind us why we fight to survive. The infected have no memories, no dreams. That sets us apart. We carry the old world inside us, even if it is gone outside. If you must travel long distances, consider breaking it into segments. Move from one safe spot to the next, rest, watch for infected, then move on. Trying to cover a great distance in one go might exhaust you and dull your senses. A sharp mind is your best tool. If you discover that certain foods are too risky to find, adjust your diet. Maybe you hope to find canned meat, but only find dried grains. Learn to accept what you find. Survival is about adapting. Grind grains between stones to make a rough meal, soak them in water, make do with what you have. If you come across corpses of infected or old human remains, do not linger. Aside from the horror and sadness it brings, staying near them might pose risks of sickness or attract scavengers. Pay respect silently if you must, then move on. Dwelling on death will not help you live. If you hear muffled human voices from a distance, approach with extreme caution. They may be survivors who could help you, or they might be hostile. Observe from hiding first. Look at their behavior. Are they moving quietly, watching their surroundings, or are they careless and loud? Their behavior might tell you if they are trustworthy. If you find a metal container, you can place a small candle inside it to reduce light and make a makeshift lantern with a narrow beam. Just be sure not to let it reflect outside windows. Control the light you use so it does not betray your presence. If you must cross a wide open area with no cover, pick the time of day carefully. Dawn or dusk might give you enough dim light to move while still seeing hazards. Midday sun can make you too visible. Complete darkness can make you stumble into infected. Balance your choices. Keep an ear out for sounds of running water. Streams or small rivers can lead you to places where nature still thrives. Where there is water, there might be small edible plants, maybe even a safe place to rest on a hidden bank. Just beware that animals and infected might also be drawn there. If you have the skill to set a small trap near your shelter, like a tripwire attached to a noisemaker on the opposite side of your main sleeping room, it can alert you if infected breach. Just make sure it does not make too much noise to draw more infected. You want just enough warning to escape. If you have spare cloth, tie strips around metal objects that might clang or rattle in your bag. Softening these objects reduces noise. A silent bag is better than one that jingles and calls attention. If you see infected clustered in an alley, do not try to slip by unless you are sure there is no other route. Challenge yourself to be patient. Take the long way around. Climb onto low rooftops if possible. Do anything to avoid direct contact. If you manage to find a small patch of wild vegetables, dandelion leaves, wild garlic, or other safe greens, eat them slowly and savor the taste. Your diet is limited now, so any variety is welcome. Just be certain they are not poisonous. Stick to plants you know, or test a small piece first, and wait to see if you feel ill. If the infected ever seem to follow you specifically, try changing your pace. Stop moving for a while. Let them drift off. They are not intelligent, they do not strategize, but they react to what they sense. If you deny them sound or movement, they might wander away. If you have a radio and batteries, scan the frequencies now and then, but keep the volume low. Maybe you will catch a faint voice. Maybe someone else like me is trying to offer words of comfort or guidance. Even a brief whisper of another human voice can ease loneliness. If you find old sheets or curtains, you can tear them into strips for bandages or rope. Every scrap can serve a purpose. We must be resourceful, because supplies will never be replenished as before. There are no factories running, no stores restocking. If thunder and lightning come, be careful not to stand under tall trees or near metal poles. The world's old dangers still remain. A lightning strike can injure or kill you. Find shelter. Wait out the storm. Let the noise of rain mask your existence. If you carry a small blade, keep it sharp. A dull blade requires more force and creates more noise when cutting through materials. Sharpening can be done against a flat stone, though it takes practice. A sharp tool saves effort and risk. If you feel emotionally overwhelmed, try to calm yourself by focusing on something steady, like your breath, or the feel of something solid under your hand. Panic leads to rash actions, and rash actions lead to noise and danger. If you watch infected from afar and notice that after a while they move on, remember that pattern. Maybe each day at a certain time they drift in a certain direction. If you can predict their movements, you might time your scavenging trips to avoid them. If you have a way to store extra water, do so. You never know when you will find more. Water is life. Without clean water, you weaken and your mind dulls. Keep it sealed and hidden. If you feel something crawling on your skin at night, resist the urge to slap at it. That might make noise. Gently brush it away. Even tiny moments of noise can echo in the stillness. If you enter a building and smell decay, proceed with caution. Infected might be inside, or old corpses might fill the space. Such smells can turn your stomach and make you gag, so prepare mentally. Cover your nose and mouth with cloth. If you plan to light a fire to cook something, gather all you need first and have your escape route ready. Make it a small fire, shielded by rocks or metal. Extinguish it completely when done. Smoke and scent travel far. If you find yourself in a deserted farm, check barns, silos, and cellars. Grain might still be there, dried corn or wheat that can be ground into something edible. But be careful. Barns can have weak floors and hidden infected. Step lightly. If your clothes tear, repair them with whatever thread or string you can find. Exposed skin can get scratched or cut. Protection matters. Also, loose flaps of cloth may catch on things and cause sudden noises. If you must climb a fence, do it slowly. Test each foothold. Avoid rattling the fence. Metal fences can ring like a bell if you move too roughly. Smooth, gentle motion is key. If you meet a survivor who shares your goal of finding a long-term safe place, maybe a high valley or a deep forest hollow, plan carefully. Map out the route, consider risks, agree on signals. Two minds can solve problems one alone cannot. Still, keep a watchful eye. Trust takes time. If you find a small animal trapped in a snare, kill it quickly and humanely if you plan to eat it. Do not let it squeal or thrash. That noise can draw infected. Be firm and swift. If you stumble upon old solar lights for gardens, you might use them as a silent light source at night if you recharge them in daylight. But be sure to shield their glow. Even small lights can attract trouble. If you are near a beach or shoreline, watch out for infected washed ashore. Water does not stop them from drifting in. A silent figure might be lying half submerged, ready to lunge if disturbed. If memories hit you hard and tears come, cry silently if you can. Clench a cloth between your teeth to keep from sobbing loudly. It is natural to feel pain, but remember where you are. Emotions must be handled with care in this quiet world. If you carry a stick or cane, wrap the end with cloth so it does not make a sharp tapping sound on hard floors. Silence every part of your gear. Your survival depends on stealth. If your current shelter feels unsafe, start planning a move even if you do not do it right now. Think where you might go if something drives you out. A backup plan calms the mind. As I speak these words, I realize I have shared much. My voice may fade soon. I have done what I can to guide you, to give you hope and help. We have covered many details, many tips, many warnings. The world is harsh now, and I cannot promise that you will survive. But knowledge can tilt the odds in your favor. Remember that you are not truly alone. As long as we remember that others exist, that someone else struggles as we do, we form an unseen bond. Even if we never meet, these words connect us. They prove that human thought still flows, that our spirit endures beyond loss and terror. If I must leave you with something final, let it be this. Carry hope quietly inside you like a small flame. Protect it from the wind. Let it guide your steps. Hope that someday these empty streets will know laughter again, that fields will be tended, that children will play without fear. Hope is what keeps us from becoming like them, empty and wandering. I have said much, and I feel I have little left to give. Survive, whoever you are. Use silence as your shield, patience as your guide, memory as your warmth. The infected took our old world. But as long as one human heart beats with kindness and courage, we remain human. I will fall silent now. May your steps be light, your breath steady, and your mind clear. Keep going. Keep going. I know I said I would fall silent. Maybe I thought I had said everything I could. But silence weighs heavily in these empty rooms, and I keep thinking of you out there, trying to survive. Perhaps I can share a bit more. Sometimes, even after we think we have given all we can, we find a small reserve left inside. So I will speak again, quietly, as the day grows older. Maybe the sun stands higher now, warming broken glass on old windowsills, casting weak light through dusty air. Maybe you have taken a step outside your shelter, or maybe you're still curled in a corner, listening. I have been thinking about small comforts we can still find. Even in a ruined world, a scrap of cloth that feels soft can soothe your nerves, or a clean sip of water can bring a brief smile. We must find comfort where we can, though quietly, so as not to draw attention. If you are brave enough to move from one place to another, choose the time with care. Think about what you learned. Dawn might let you see well enough without being fully seen, and the quiet before morning noises might help you slip by unnoticed. If mornings do not work, try midday shadows behind tall buildings, or the hush of dusk. Keep testing, but always stay safe. Some survivors have spoken about trying to build small hidden gardens. If you find seeds in an old shed or a forgotten drawer, you might try planting them in a safe spot. Do not expect quick results. This takes patience. But the idea of growing something from seed in this world might lift your spirit. Just be sure to hide it well. Do not let infected or hungry wanderers find it easily. If you manage to find old clothing that fits better than what you have, Switch into it slowly and quietly. Keep your old clothes too if you can carry them. They might be useful as rags or bandages. Every scrap matters now. When you search abandoned houses, look for the quiet corners people might have ignored in panic. Behind large appliances, under loose floorboards, inside chimney spaces, you might find stashed cans or tools. But be very quiet when you shift objects. A single loud scrape can carry far. If you must cross a wide road with cars rusting in the sun, choose your path carefully. Cars can shelter infected crouching inside, waiting without thought or reason. Check through windows before passing. If the glass is too dirty to see through, tap softly on the car with a fingertip and listen for movement. If you hear nothing, move on. If you hear a scrape from within, find another route. If you ever find a pencil and some paper, you might try writing a small note to yourself. List what you have, what you need, what you hope to find. Setting thoughts down might help clear your mind. Just be sure not to leave notes lying around that reveal your hiding place or your supplies. In rare moments, you might spot wild animals reclaiming parts of the land. A deer nibbling at weeds near a collapsed building, or a fox darting between cracked pavement and weed-choked lots. This reminds us that life goes on, even without our old ways. Watching these animals quietly might calm you, but do not approach them. Sudden movement or noise can draw infected, and wild animals may flee and leave you exposed. If you carry a small mirror, you can use sunlight reflected off it to send silent signals. But remember that reflections might catch the eye of infected or unfriendly survivors. If you must signal someone you trust, do it quickly and cover the mirror. Never repeat the same pattern twice if you think someone else might be watching. If your shelter feels too cramped, try clearing a small space so you can lie down without obstacles. Good rest sharpens your senses. A cluttered room can cause you to trip in the dark. Keep your space tidy as much as you can. Even small order in chaos helps your mind. If your shoes are too loud when you step, try wrapping strips of cloth around the soles to muffle the sound. It may wear off quickly, but even a short period of quiet steps can let you slip past infected without drawing their heads up. When you approach a building you have never entered, circle it first from a safe distance. Check windows for silhouettes. Look for open doors that sway in the breeze. If you see signs that others have been there recently, fresh footprints, disturbed dust, recently moved furniture, proceed with caution. Another survivor might still be inside, and you cannot know if they are friendly. If you find old medicine, read the labels if you can. If they are sealed and not expired by many years, they might still help for minor pains or infections, the normal kind. Keep them safe. Good medicine is rare, but never rely on medicine you do not understand if it looks strange or unsafe. If nighttime frightens you because it hides everything, remember that it also hides you. With careful movement and no light, you can become a shadow yourself, passing by infected without them knowing. Just go slowly. Your ears must work harder in the dark, since your eyes see less. If you find a blanket, consider using it not just for warmth, but to muffle doors or windows. A thick blanket hung over a door frame can absorb sound, keeping your whispers and movements inside less likely to escape. If your path leads you near water, like a river or a lake, be mindful that sound travels over water. Even a quiet cough might carry far. Move slowly near the shore, and if you must wash clothes or yourself, do it gently. Splashing is too risky. If you need to break something, like a locked drawer or a wooden crate, place cloth or rags over your tool and the surface to soften the impact. Try slowly prying it open rather than smashing. A loud crack can bring infected running. If thunder rolls in the distance, you might time your movements with the rumble. Move when it booms. Pause when it stops. This can mask your footsteps. Nature's sounds can be your ally if you know how to use them. If hunger gnaws at you and you have nothing to eat, remind yourself to stay calm. Panic will not conjure food from thin air. Instead, think of the nearest place you have not searched. Plan a quiet trip. Maybe an old pantry, a basement, or a collapsed barn that others found too risky to check. Just be smart about it. If you have a companion who loses heart, try small gestures of comfort, a gentle pat on the shoulder, or a quiet nod. Words may be risky if they produce sound. Body language can say a lot without making noise. If you start feeling numb, as if you no longer care about anything, try to remember something sweet from before. A favorite smell, a friendly face, a moment of kindness. Even if it hurts, it reminds you that you are alive and capable of more than just fear and hunger. When moving through hallways, stay close to the walls. The center of a hallway might creak if floorboards are weak. Also, if infected appear at one end, you can slip into a doorway or flatten against the wall. Hugging the edges gives you options. If you spot broken glass on the floor, clear it away before settling in. A single crunch at the wrong moment can ruin your hiding spot. Use a piece of cloth to gather shards quietly and dump them somewhere out of the way. If you pass by old posters on walls, maybe ads from before, showing happy people eating in bright rooms, try not to dwell too long. Yes, it is sad, but lingering risks making noise or losing your focus. You can remember the old world without staring at reminders that might break your heart further. If your radio picks up faint static patterns, do not waste time trying to decode them. Static is just the absence of a clear voice. Unless you are sure there is a pattern, do not stay glued to the radio. Keep scanning from time to time, but do not become obsessed. Your time and energy must be guarded. If you find a safe spot with fresh air and a bit of sunshine, take a brief moment to just breathe. Close your eyes and feel the warmth on your face. Do it silently and quickly. Small moments like this can give you strength to keep going. If you must climb up or down something, like a ladder or a stack of crates, test each rung or step before putting your full weight on it. A sudden break can cause a fall, and that would create noise and hurt you. Slow, steady movement is best. If you ever see infected drifting in circles, as if confused, do not assume they are harmless. They may still react if they sense you. Keep your distance. They have no logic, no pattern you can truly trust. If you have a few matches left, save them for times when you must light a small flame to see or to start a tiny fire for cooking. Never light them out of boredom or to look around for no reason. Every resource is precious. If nights grow colder, you can share body warmth with a companion by sitting back to back under a blanket. This way you both stay a bit warmer without talking. A quiet bond can form in that silence. You protect each other without words. If you must cross a field with tall grass, crouch low. Move slowly so the grass does not rustle too much. If you hear infected nearby, stop completely and wait. They might pass by if they do not see the grass move. If you find a small tin can, consider cleaning it and using it to boil a bit of water if you have fire. Even warm water can soothe your throat if you feel dry. Just remember to shield the flame and be careful with smoke. If time feels endless and you cannot recall how long it has been since things changed, count your breaths for a while. It gives you a small sense of control. Remind yourself that you live breath by breath, choosing carefully with each step you take. If your shelter has a window you cannot block, try standing against the wall next to it rather than in front of it. This way, if infected peer in, they see an empty room instead of your shape. Always think about sightlines. If you feel the urge to shout out of frustration, bite down on cloth instead. A single shout could bring a swarm. This world punishes noise like never before. Stay calm. Focus on your goals: food, water, quiet shelter, and maybe one day a safer life. If you see old tools covered in rust, wipe them down. Even if they are weak, they might still help you pry open a small crate or cut through a thin rope. Just do not rely on them for heavy work. Adjust your plans to the tools you have. If you must move during rain, keep your head down to shield your face from drops that might make you blink or flinch loudly. Even small discomfort can cause you to gasp or cough. If infected are near and you need them to move away, sometimes a small thrown pebble to one side can distract them. Make sure you have cover and that the noise of the pebble landing is not too close to you. Wait until they drift toward the sound, then move in the opposite direction. If you find old canned fruit, savor it. The sweetness can remind you of old days, but close the can quietly and dispose of it so no smell lingers. Rinse it if possible and store it for future use. A can might be useful for many things. If you pick a spot to sleep, choose a place where you have 2 exits if possible. If infected break in from one side, you can slip out the other. If that is not possible, at least keep a small tool by your side to fight your way out if needed. If you ever see children surviving out there, maybe a young voice whispering in a broken attic, approach carefully. Children might be frightened and might scream if startled. Try to show them you mean no harm by placing some food on the floor and stepping back. Let them decide if they trust you. If not, move on quietly and leave them be. We must respect each other's safety. If you recall old lessons about nature, like which plants are safe to eat, how to find water by following animal tracks, use that knowledge now. The old world's lessons did not vanish. They might be your best guide. If you ever gather enough supplies to last a few days, use that time to rest and strengthen your shelter. Patch holes. Rearrange furniture to block weak spots. A stronger shelter means better sleep and less panic. If you find a quiet corner of a building with thick walls, it might muffle outside sounds. This can let you whisper a few words to yourself or a companion without being heard outside. But still be cautious. Walls are not always as thick as they seem. If your clothing soaks through with sweat on a hot day, try to air it out silently in a safe spot. Damp clothes can make you cold at night. A small patch of sunlight in a hidden yard can dry them faster, but watch for infected before stepping into the open. If you catch a glimpse of a place that looks like it has fresh produce, maybe wild greens growing in a cracked parking lot, approach slowly and watch for a while. See if infected wander through. If they do not, you may have found a spot to gather some leaves to eat. Just test them first, nibble a bit, and wait. If lightning flashes at night, do not stand in open doorways where your figure might be silhouetted by the flash. Move away from windows. Let the bright flash pass without revealing you. If at any point you feel that you cannot go on, remember that survival is often about patience. Maybe rest a bit longer, drink a sip of water, close your eyes and listen to your own heartbeat. You are still here. That alone is a victory. If you think of a plan to join others or head to rumored safe havens, make sure you have enough food and water to last the journey. Scout the path in your mind or by careful short trips. Do not rush into unknown territories without some idea of what awaits. As I share these thoughts, I realize they may seem simple and repetitive, but survival is made of small details repeated every day. Quiet steps, careful checks, patient waiting. Each small step keeps you alive until the next one. They add up to a life lived in silence and shadow, but lived nonetheless. I have chosen to speak again, not because I have new grand advice, but because sometimes hearing another voice, even if it is a stranger's, can remind you that you are not the only one left who thinks and cares. Even if we never meet, we share this struggle. I hope these extra words help. If you still listen, keep them in mind. If you have moved on, these words float in empty air, maybe to be caught by someone else later. That is fine too. I will try to rest now. The day moves on, and I must watch my own surroundings. If I find a reason to speak again, I will. Until then, be safe. May your footsteps be silent and your mind steady. Keep going, and do not give up. I did not plan to speak again. Each time I say I will rest, I find something else tugging at my mind, urging me to share more. Perhaps I am afraid that if I fall silent too long, the emptiness will close in. Or maybe I sense that you, out there, still need a voice. A voice that remembers what it means to be careful, to hold on when the world is broken. I cannot promise new wisdom. After so many days of speaking, we have covered much. Still, there are always small details we might have missed, quiet angles we did not consider. Survival is not just a list of steps, but a way of thinking. Maybe we can deepen that way of thinking together. Let's speak about traveling across open land. The world is not all ruined buildings and cracked streets. In some places, you might find fields covered in tall grass, rolling hills, or stretches of dirt roads with nothing but silence. These open areas can seem safer at first, fewer corners for infected to hide behind. But open land has its own risks. With no walls to block line of sight, an infected standing on a distant ridge might spot you against the horizon if you move too quickly. Also, sound can travel far in open spaces with no background noise to mask it. If you must cross an open field, consider the time of day. At midday, your shape stands clear under the bright sun. At dawn or dusk, the light is softer, and shadows are longer. You can crouch low, Move behind small rises in the ground and blend into the dim light. You might even wait for a light rain to fall, rain that can soften the sound of your footsteps in the grass. Approach any distant goal slowly. Scan the horizon for movement before you stand tall. Let's think about rivers. We have touched on them before, but maybe we can say more. A river can be a barrier that infected do not easily cross, at least if it is deep or swift. If you find a narrow river, you might consider finding a quiet way across. A fallen log, a series of stones, or a small makeshift raft if you are truly skilled and daring. But remember, that building anything that floats requires quiet work, and any hammering or sawing might draw attention. Also, if you slip and fall into the water, the splash could carry sound far downstream. If you cross, do it in silence. Take your time and watch both banks carefully. Once across, you might find fewer infected if they have not crossed themselves. But do not trust that too much. They might be scattered everywhere by now. What about old farms that once kept animals? Most of the animals would have fled long ago. Some may roam wild now, forming small herds deep in the countryside. If you ever spot a distant shape that looks like a cow or a sheep, it might be a source of food if you are skilled at hunting quietly. But be aware that chasing or cornering an animal is risky. It can make noise, startle the animal into running and bleeding. A sudden bleat could draw infected from far off. If you lack skill in silent hunting, it may be wiser to stick to gathering what you can from plants or small, quiet traps. Large prey might not be worth the risk unless you are truly prepared. Consider the seasons. We have mentioned them lightly, but let's say more. If the season grows colder, nights become longer, and infected, stiff with the chill, might move more slowly. That could be your advantage. But you must also keep warm without making noise. Layer clothing, find blankets, shelter inside thick-walled places if possible. A basement might hold a more stable temperature than a drafty attic. On the other hand, if the season is hot, you might find infected moving at the same slow pace, but you yourself could suffer from thirst more quickly. Carry water whenever you can. Plan routes that let you refill quietly from streams or rain barrels. Each season brings its own problems and small advantages. Now about meeting other survivors. We spoke of caution before, but let's imagine you have found someone who does not seem hostile. Maybe you followed them from a distance and saw them practicing quiet steps, careful searches. They leave no traps behind, and they do not shout. If you feel it is safe enough, you might try to approach at dawn, when people are often more alert and less startled. Show empty hands first, no sudden moves, no loud words. Maybe place a small bit of food on a rock and step back. Give them space to see you are not a threat. If they respond kindly, you can try whispered words. If they show fear or raise a weapon, nod and back away slowly. It might take more than one encounter before trust forms. Patience is needed not only with infected but also with human hearts. Let's consider hidden signals. We talked about marking paths with subtle signs, but maybe we can refine that idea. If you use a small scratch on a post to show a safe route, remember that anyone can read it, friendly or not. Choose something personal, like 2 short scratches followed by a longer one, something that only you understand. This way, if you return months later, you can recognize your own marks. Avoid bright paint or large arrows, as they can guide infected or hostile survivors as well. Keep your signs subtle and low to the ground, behind leaves or loose bricks, so only someone who knows to look for them can find them. What if you want to store some supplies outside your main shelter as a backup? Maybe bury a small container of dried food and a bottle of water a short walk away, under a distinctive rock or a tree with a certain twisted branch. This gives you an emergency cache if your shelter is compromised. But when you bury it, do it quietly. Use soft tools or your hands, move slowly, and cover your tracks. If someone or something finds disturbed soil, they might investigate. Try to leave it looking as natural as possible. We have spoken of avoiding cities, but let's imagine you have no choice. Perhaps you must pass through the edge of a city to reach a rumored safe haven. If you must enter a city, stick to the outskirts first. Scout from a high vantage point, maybe the top floor of a small building at the city's edge. Watch the streets below for an entire day if you can afford it. Note if infected move in patterns, if they cluster at certain spots, if there are long stretches of empty road you could slip through at certain hours. Only after gathering this knowledge should you attempt any movement inside the city. Move building to building, never staying in open streets longer than necessary. If you must enter a building, pick small ones, not large complexes that may hold many infected trapped inside. Let's talk about cooking a bit more. If you find raw grains or dried beans and want to cook them to make them softer and easier to eat, build only the smallest of fires. Use a metal can or a small pot if available, and try to light the fire in a place hidden from outside view. Behind thick walls or in a basement with good ventilation. Keep the flame low and watch it constantly. Even a small flicker of light can betray you if it reflects out a window. Once cooked, store the food in quiet containers. Let the fire die completely, scatter the ashes, and cool down any hot metal before moving it. Smoke and smell can linger, so pick a time when a breeze might carry it away from areas with infected. A rainy evening might help mask the scent. If you ever come across a group of survivors who have formed a small outpost, be doubly careful. They might have a system of signs, watchers, and traps to keep infected out. That might also mean they are wary of newcomers. If you truly wish to join them, approach slowly. Let them see you from a distance and show that you carry no threat. If they refuse you, do not beg or raise your voice. Just leave calmly. Forcing your way in will end badly for both sides. If, on the other hand, they accept you, be ready to prove your worth quietly. Maybe you know how to gather certain foods silently or can fix small tools. But never let your guard down fully until you are sure of their intentions. The world changes people, sometimes not for the better. What if you find a stable supply of clean water, perhaps an old hand pump well that still works? Guard it closely, but not obviously. You do not want to build a huge barricade around it that draws attention from afar. Instead, keep a low fence or some natural-looking debris around it that makes it harder to see at first glance. Visit it at times when infected are less likely to be near, perhaps at dawn. If others find it, consider sharing a little water to avoid conflict, but do not reveal your entire supply. The balance between kindness and self-preservation is delicate now. We have not spoken much about rest. Sleep is dangerous when you are alone. If you must sleep, wedge yourself into a corner where no one can come up behind you. Block the door with furniture or objects that would fall if someone pushes it open. This creates a noise trap that can wake you. Even when sleeping, keep a small tool at hand. Dress in layers you can sleep in, so if you must flee suddenly, you will not waste time getting dressed. Try to sleep lightly, waking now and then to listen. It is not a comfortable way to live, but comfort must wait until things improve. If an infected ever spots you and you must run, remember to lead them away from your shelter if possible. If you panic and run straight home, they might follow and learn your hiding place. Instead, circle around, slip down an alley, climb over a fence and lose them before heading back. Avoid leaving a trail that leads to your door. If your shelter is compromised and you must abandon it, do not linger to save everything. Grab only the essentials you can carry quietly: food, water, a tool or two, and clothes. Leave behind heavy items that slow you down. Your life matters more than any object. You can always find or craft more later if you remain alive. If you ever run low on cloth for bandages or sound muffling, tear strips from curtains, pillowcases, or seat covers of old vehicles. Many everyday items can be repurposed. A car seat's fabric can yield many strips of cloth if you cut carefully. Just do it silently. Ripping cloth can make noise, so muffle it by biting down or by pressing it close to another piece of fabric. Think about your senses. Sight and hearing are key, but do not neglect smell. Infected often carry a musty odor. If you sense a foul smell growing stronger as you enter a building, slow down and listen carefully. That smell might mean infected are inside, even if you have not heard or seen them yet. Use all your senses to gather clues before moving forward. If you manage to form a small team of survivors you trust, consider specialized roles. Maybe one of you is better at finding edible plants quietly, another at fixing small tools without making noise, and another at standing watch in silence for hours. By sharing tasks, you reduce the strain on any one person. but keep communication low. Use hand signals and soft taps on the shoulder at night. Even in a group, silence remains golden. If you fear that infected are improving their hearing or sense of smell over time, we do not know if they adapt, but let's assume caution. Increase your distance. Move even slower, make even fewer sounds. Treat them as if they can sense the slightest shift in the air. This might mean taking hours to travel a short distance, but survival rewards patience over speed. Do not let despair take over if you see no other survivors for a long while. Loneliness is heavy, but remember, there are others out there, scattered like you. The world is huge, and silence hides many stories. Just because you do not see them does not mean you are alone in truth. Someone might be listening to a static-filled radio right now, hoping to catch a voice like yours. If you find batteries, test them sparingly. Some might be dead. Keep them in a safe, dry place. If you have a small radio or flashlight, switch it on just a brief moment to check the battery's strength, then turn it off immediately. Save the power for critical moments. Light and sound are tools to be used only when needed. If your clothing becomes too dirty and smelly, try washing it with rainwater when it is safe. Let it dry in a hidden spot. Smell can alert infected to your presence if it is strong. Neutralize your scent by staying clean when you can, though this is a luxury now. Still, even a small improvement can help. When traveling through woodlands, watch the ground for dry twigs and leaves that crack underfoot. Move them aside slowly, or step around them. The forest floor can be as noisy as a broken city street if you do not pick your steps carefully. If you have a choice between two paths, one shorter but through a known infected area, and one longer but quieter, take the quieter route. Every time, choose safety over speed. A single mistake can cost you more time in the end, if not your life. If memories flood your mind, memories of laughter, music, or old comforts, let them pass over you like a gentle breeze. Feel them, but do not cry out. Keep that warmth inside your chest. It can push back against despair without requiring you to voice it aloud. Your silence does not mean you forget. Silence simply keeps you safe. Consider simple routines. Maybe each morning you check your door, your hidden cache, and listen at the window for 2 minutes. Each afternoon you peek out to see if the infected pattern has changed. Tiny habits, done silently, help you stay in control of a chaotic world. If you encounter old traps set by others, like a broken window with shards arranged to fall if the frame is pushed, be cautious. People have tried many tricks. Do not assume all traps are for infected. Some might be to warn survivors of intruders. If you trip one, even if it does not harm you, the noise could bring infected. Keep in mind that while infected do not speak or reason, they respond to motion and sound. Use this knowledge to plan everything. If you must cross a street, wait for a gust of wind or a distant clatter from something else to mask your steps. Blend your noise into the background, become part of the silence. If you feel your strength fading from hunger, pick your battles. Do not waste energy searching at random. Focus on places more likely to hold something edible. An old cellar, a sealed pantry, a forgotten garden bed behind a collapsed fence. Concentrate on likely spots rather than wandering aimlessly. If you stumble upon someone sleeping in a corner, do not wake them. If they wake in panic, they might scream. Instead, leave quietly or place a small sign of goodwill, like a piece of dried fruit, and leave before they stir. Kindness can be silent. If you wonder whether the infected will ever dwindle in number, no one can say. Maybe they will decay over time. Maybe conditions will change. Hope might say that one day they will be fewer, and we can reclaim some ground. Until then, act as if they remain many and dangerous. Prepare for the worst, and you will not be caught off guard. If your clothes rip and leave your skin exposed to scratches, patch them with any fabric you find. Even minor wounds can become serious if untreated. Clean any scrape with boiled water, or at least wipe it well. A simple cut might slow you down at a crucial moment. As I speak these words, I realize I am repeating some warnings and adding small details here and there. This is because survival is not about grand discoveries every day. It is about stacking small, careful acts, one after another, until they form a shield around you. Every quiet footstep, every cautious glance, every patient wait builds that shield thicker.